we hope at the end of this presentation, you walk away with a meaningful information to help you uplift your work in supporting fathers. So with that thought, welcome to our session, the supporting father involvement and co-parenting through lived experience leadership. So today you have the privilege of really get to see this work unfold through a lived experience of a father as well as a lived experience of a young person now who's an adult. So both Eric and myself and Vaden, are you going to join us? Oh,
Yes.
he's
Yes.
okay. So all three of us have a direct experience with child welfare, both as a impacted as well as currently working within the system. So the reason I bring that up is the beautiful thing about lived experience is it brings the pain to passion to purpose. So we take our experiences and turn it into passion and then use that as our purpose to uplift. So we have decided in our lives to support fathers, but our focus is, of course, children, right? So we're all in this work to keep children safe. So with that thought, I want to invite the group who's here with us. What is one word that comes to mind when you hear the word father involvement? I know you just came from lunch, so we got to get you going. So there's no wake up time. So yeah, so what is the word you hear? Needs, barriers, powerful. Yeah, you can come off and we can hear you too. Awesome. Invisible. Yeah, wow. Strong community, final, support, encouraging. So traditional importance, foundation, gender bias, challenges, strengthening, support, partnership. So you can see we all have all these plethora of words that could describe father involvement. Some of them show up as positive, some of them show up as negative in a way of their barriers rather than access, right? So our hope today, like I said, is to give you a little bit of insight to kind of crack this father involvement thing in a way that you get to see what happens, the magic that happens in our work. So my name is Deutron Kebebew. I am the executive director of an organization called Mentors, works with boys, young men, and father. Been doing this work now close to 21 years. I started Mentor when my daughter was born. So the way I measure the age of the organization is based on how old my daughter is. She just turned 9. So we are a baby organization in the life cycle. However, we've been doing this work for 20 years. So we know just a little bit more. Um, I've been part of the child welfare system as a young person. All my life, I have been an advocate of foster youth and foster families. And then now I have a privilege of inviting Eric to introduce himself.
Hi guys, my name's Eric. Live here in Santa Cruz with my 7-year-old daughter. The journey with my daughter did start under tough circumstances. I was in custody. While in custody, my daughter was removed from her mother's care. Um, I went from 1 hour, 1 week, 1 hour once a week visitation to currently having full legal and physical custody. And my goal here is to really talk about what makes father engagement work, and hopefully share some experiences that I've had, good and bad, and what helped me along my way as far as um, engagement. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Vaden, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Vaden. I have been volunteering with mentors for the past couple of years, and I also came on part-time to work with mentors over the last year. I also work with the Parent Center in Santa Cruz as a parent mentor. Uh, I met Deutron through difficult circumstances of family law cases and criminal cases and ending up in dependency court myself, uh, feeling like I needed to prove to the court that I could be a father. I was born and raised in Santa Cruz, and party culture and drugs and alcohol is part of my story. I have now been sober for 3.5 years, and I've been doing this work for a couple of years now, and I look forward to sharing my experience and how I do this work.
Thank you, Vaden. So we were lucky enough through Families First Prevention, we had actually a focus group of fathers, which Vaden and Eric were a leader of, really looking at their experience through the lens of what helped them to be successful, what was a barrier, and then be able to also implement some leadership and facilitation as well as sharing back and giving back. So Vaden and Eric are one of our shiny uh, candles, if you want to call it shiny, bright candles that continue to inspire my work, because they're not just successful for their kids, but they're giving back and really trying to help other fathers. So we've been talking, the new buzzword. I've been in the advocacy of child welfare now. I just turned 49, which usually people don't tell their age, but I feel comfortable with it since I was 14. So a lot of my life has been, and the buzzword now is lived experience, right? But lived experience has to be harnessed in a way that honors with dignity and respect and uplifts the experience of the people who went through it in a meaningful way, so that they're part of the design, implementation, and a service module. So that's why it's really important for me to make sure I surround myself with people who are not just the benefactor of our program, but also have ideas of how to improve the system and improving and uplifting other fathers who are struggling. So our goal today is to weave in both professional as well as lived experiences to share with you how to engage fathers. You probably have some ideas already. Shared purposes about prevention. When we're supporting fathers, they're coming after the fact. So we're serving them at the intervention. So what we're trying to say is, how can we do this earlier? And I'll give you some ideas. It's also about equity. That word these days is maybe dirty, but it's still about equity. And there's not enough equity when it comes to system involvement, when it comes to fathers. And then family resiliency. Families do better when the equation is at least there's two parents working together, right? The model of single parenthood is really difficult. My heart goes out to Eric and how much he has to put. My mom was a single mom and she did an incredible job. Not to take anything away from single parents, but as a person who has another partner who's helping me to raise my 9-year-old, I can tell you, even with the two of us, we struggle. So I don't know how you can do it with one person. It's not doable. It's taxing, it's very challenging, and that's why sometimes our families end up in our system. So thinking in form of prevention. So one idea is to think about out the door in prevention is engage fathers early on. So how do you do that? Is your program already offering fatherhood program for new fathers? That's one of the things we do in our county is we provide first-time fathers or fathers with newborn children a group, because their needs are totally different than the need of Eric or Vaden or myself. We're in different stage with different resources and different support. But you all know, if you have had kid, those 2 years are the most difficult thing, right? The advice you get is sleep. It's not like you can bank sleep, right? You're going to have to go through that sleep deprivation like all of us. It's a rite of passage, right? But it's difficult. But if you have the network of people who normalize it, tell you you're not alone, hopefully it doesn't lead to postpartum depression or other mental health challenges or breastfeeding issue, or the child has any sort of health related issue. When you're in that community, it feels like it's doable, right? You have heard the expression, it takes a village. It really takes a village. And last night I finished a group with a group of 9 dads. And on the last session, we brings the moms. And it was great to see what the moms were sharing to say, he's already helping me in this way. He's listening to me. I feel in the same page. It's not that dads don't know how to do that. Sometimes they just hearing from other fathers and normalizing their behavior really makes it easier. So my encouragement to you, if you're really looking at prevention, is try to engage dads at early on. And what the research shows is if a father is involved in the first 2 years of his child's life, he's committed for life. But if he misses that window, it's really you gotta convince. Hey, Mr. DeLeon, nice to see you. There's another father expert in here, so you can ask him too. He can share more. Um, so the other part is, as we're here together, my invitation to you is we know all experiences are not the same. So we show up both as teachers and students. So we invite you to do that. And then be curious. Ask us any question in a way that's going to uplift this work. And then the openness, right? So myself, Vaden, and Eric, we're going to be as open as we can, how challenging and how exciting fatherhood is as a way of pulling people. So why I say that to you, primary strategy is if you're going to try to engage dad, one of the linking point is you may want to share your own experience with your father, whatever that might be. It might be positive or negative. You don't have to go to the details, but that's a connection point to say, hey, I can relate to that as a daughter or as a mother or as an aunt. My brother was experiencing. So that's a connecting point that I want you to walk away is don't put a wall when you're working with the father. Connect at the heart before you solve the problem. So with that thought, of course, fathers as a protective factors, we'll talk about in a minute, impact children's outcome. And also there are gaps. We have come a long way in 20 years in supporting fathers. And at the same time, we're still talking about it. Like we haven't solved the problem, right? So part of that is the system hasn't quite invested as a strategy of just providing fatherhood services no matter what. And one of the things that I can say I'm proud of about mentors is this organization will exist beyond me. The next leadership might be Vaden or Eric or somebody else who understands the pain, the passion, the purpose. So when you're recruiting fathers, think about how they can channel their pain into purpose and come into this field and teach other men, because the connection goes a long way when Vaden or Eric is talking to a father more than me, right? I can tell him my story, but that's not the same thing. My kid is not being removed. So I know my limits, right? So that's when I draw on Eric and Vaden to help with that aspect of it. So let's quickly share with you. So when it comes to dads, what we know when it comes to child development, the research shows that children do better in child development, both in cognitive, emotional, and social skills. They often exhibit higher academic achievement, better problem solving, improved language. So that's just in the child development role. When we talk about emotional well-being, fathers play a vital role in nurturing their children emotional security, health. This can reduce the likelihood of behavior problem as well as mental health around anxiety and depression. So again, role modeling is another one. I am the prince for my daughter, and I am the hero for my son, right? So starts with us, not outside. And when our children don't get that, then they're looking in the streets, in the schools, somebody else to be their hero and their prince. So we got to start in supporting the home environment in a way. That's why prevention is close to my heart as much as intervention. Intervention is the train has left the station. Now we're all running after it, jumping and trying to reduce the trauma or the pain. Prevention is early on having that conversation saying, tell me in your home, how was discipline conducted? What was communication look like? Did you feel parents were fair or unfair? How would you change that? So parenting education doesn't have to be an intervention. It could be a stronger prevention and protective factor. Of course, when it comes to healthy relationship, active father involvement promotes positive family dynamics, stronger relationship within the family, and children in homes where both parents are engaged are more likely to experience healthier relationship themselves as an adults because they got to see it being modeled and they got to see the challenges, right? In addition, risky behaviors. Study shows that children who have an involved father are less likely to use substance use, criminal activity, early sexual activity. I can tell you in the work I do with boys in middle school, a lot of them show up from absent father homes. And sometimes the dad may be there. He's just not available for 12 to 14 hours due to economics. So we don't just engage the young man, we engage their parents saying, we know socioeconomically it's very difficult to live in Santa Cruz County, one of the most expensive county in the country, by the way, more than New York. Okay. So how do you balance being present for your kids as well as providing for them, right? And then, of course, co-parenting and family stability. We want our young people to see how mom and dad are working as a team. We know that traditional roles of stay-home moms these days don't exist. Moms are going to work and coming and still cooking and doing other things. My wife and I do that. We trade responsibilities throughout the week. There wasn't, this is your job, this is my job. It's a unit job, right? So imagine if you're a single parent or you're struggling with substance abuse or mental health, all of those are major barriers. So we work very closely with mental health programs and substance abuse programs to really early on to intervene and co-program while somebody's doing AA or NA classes. Can we sprinkle a little bit of parenting or communication or personal growth? This morning I did group inside the jail for men who haven't seen their kids. They can still be involved. They can still have contact visit. They can still write letters to their kids, but they're so worried that I'm here and I don't want them to say, but your absence creates much bigger void than your presence, even from jail. Right. So these are some of the outcome, of course, in gender equity and fatherhood. Really, the truth is the traditional roles don't exist. If this is what a man, this is what a woman does when it comes to parenting. It's really blended. And if that is your family, great. Just have that conversation. Make sure it fits for everybody. But what we know is it's a two-income family these days, right? If we can pull it off with one, it's amazing. I don't know. It's very difficult too. Community impact. When we see our fathers available in schools, sports, and community activity, it shows that we are involved, not just the fun things, but also in the care of our community and our schools. It reduces bullying. It reduces hate related issues at school. It reduces fights and kids going to the principal's office a lot because our programming in schools makes a huge difference for these boys who are feeling like, what does it mean to be a young man and learning from another peer of themselves who their brain is not even developed yet, right? We know man's brain develops all the way until the age of 30. So some of their peers, what they're teaching them is really not healthy. And then, of course, with dads themselves, the ripple effect is not just, I am a good dad. Of course, we know they're good, but being a great dad is a generational impact. Now you're impacting multiple generation, breaking a cycle of your own upbringing to give your children and your family a better outcome. So I'm going to pause there. Eric, you want to prompt? Yeah.
Sure. So I'm going to ask the question, where and how do fathers show up the most in your line of work, and where do they not show up?
You can put it
Um,
in the chat or you can come up. off mic and talk to us. We would love to hear your voice.
Oh, you can't hear me?
No, we can hear you. You're good. You're good.
Okay. Um, so are the fathers showing up? Are they not consistent? Um, you know, just and in the chat is perfect or voice, like
Sports.
Ron said.
Yeah.
I'm I'm from Sierra County and I'm working with some of the dads and some of the parents. I'm getting ready to start the dads around the table with CalFresh. I
Okay.
just got my facilitator. Anyhow, I'm a grandma as well. Dads are at soccer games, baseball games, practices. That's where I find dads. And um, that's how I recruited them to come to nurturing parenting classes was on the soccer field, honestly. And I just went around and they know that it's a small town here. This is Loyalton, California, and it's the Los Sierras and not many people here. However, they don't get to go to like the award ceremonies during the middle of the day. They're at work. They're not there. It's not the dads and so it's the after work event. I also and I put it in the chat line. I don't think dads know how important they are and their role is sometimes. So think they need to be encouraged. Um, okay, I'm gonna mute now.
No, you did great. You gave so much wisdom. So thank you so much. I hope you heard, and some of you were nodding. You agree with those wisdoms, right? So, but the biggest piece, Eric, what did we get out of that? Meet dads.
That dads are just they're needed, and that there is some areas that there's some sort of limited access, or yeah, there's those slight barriers there, communication, whatnot.
Right. And then meeting them where they are, right? If we expect them to show up to us, that's a barrier right there. Just because of work, because of accessibility of, we don't operate 9 to 5. I don't know what that is. I work when the dads are available, which is, to be honest with you, creates an issue for me at home as well with my wife. She's like, how come you don't work 9 to 5? Because that's not, so that is the expectation, right? So I work on the weekend, I work evenings, and I'm trying to also balance my own family needs with my work because I'm so passionate. Sometimes I could become very blind, the same way Eric or Vaden would do it, right? So you may have to pivot a little bit. Maybe one day a week you will have an evening hours that you're available. You tell your boss, "Hey, I'm coming in at 11, leaving at 7. I want to give that 2 hours, 5 to 7, to be available for the guys who work." Go ahead, Vaden.
In my professional role, to answer the question, where I get contact with dads is usually through referrals from probation, dependency court, the lawyers, treatment centers, and the very rare self-referral. And then the often missing in spaces that require engagement in those 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. hours, because typically they're working. Um, and I find that where we could engage. So to your point earlier, Deutron, of the train's already left the station and we're running to catch it, right? All of those places I mentioned professionally where I connect with these fathers is after the train has already left the station. They're already incarcerated or justice involved. They're already in dependency or family court. They're already having the struggles happen. And places that I have found in this sort of parent mentor role and in working with mentors, where we find them is at the hospital during delivery, at work, through HR programs, uh, at sporting events, as I saw mentioned in here. You have an opportunity. We all have an opportunity to meet dads every day. It's just being willing to approach the conversation in those atypical environments. If we're willing to engage with dads where they are and have the conversation of, hey, have you what kind of parenting classes or parenting skills do you have? You know, what are you doing? What were you taught? What was your childhood like? And what was your experience with your dad like? And hey, are you interested in joining this? You know, we have like the thing called the Fatherhood Advisory Council. Would you be interested in just meeting up with a bunch of dads a couple times a month and having dinner and you know, lowering the barrier to entry to get dads together is really going to be an incredibly helpful tool.
Thank you, Vaden. That's awesome. Eric, anything you want to add before we transition?
Just the fact of, I think at the very base of everything, meeting fathers where they are, um, not always assuming that they're 100% interested, because I've worked with some dads that right off the bat, there was some red flags as far as the length that they would go to achieve the goal of spending time with their child. So I think it's determining, figuring out how to determine where they're at, and then hitting them exactly, where they to meet where they want to go ultimately with the case, with their kid, etc.
So thank you, both of you, and a lot of in the chat as well. How do you show them that they trust you? So this is the most common thing that I'm asked, and I bet you the wisdom is in this room. Every one of you know how to get somebody to trust you. That's the answer. We're not going to give you anything unique that you already don't know. How would you get your brother to trust you? That's the question I ask. Because if I give you one, I don't know who these dads are, what their circumstances. I don't know your story. So if I give you, it'd just be hypothetical. But you know what you need for trust. And you can ask that to somebody. I ask my dads, I say, what do you need from this organization? It's not like what boxes I have to check so your social worker or probation officer or the judge is happy. I want to know, what do you want to get out of this? Because that becomes my anchor to motivate them. Right? They may say, can you help me with the job? Can you help me see my kid more? Can you help me stop fighting with my partner? Whatever they say, that's where we start, and we'll build on the rest on top of that. Yes, there is a court mandate. Yes, there is a probation requirements. Those are secondary, tertiary, but the primary motivation has to be what the dad wants. If you don't do that, the trains are going to miss each other. He's not interested. In my 20 years doing this work, close to 5,000 father, the other day I texted dad and say, I think this program will really be great for you. He said, is it mandatory? And I replied back, I said, nothing in life is mandatory, but I know you're a good dad, but you could be great. Left it at that. I send a text, I wait a week. If they don't respond, I'll nudge them again. I don't say I close you. I never close my cases, by the way. They're open as long as they can access the program. So trust is not that it's an interaction or transaction. You're coming to me for 12 session weeks. Yeah, you will do that and more. So one of the things we say is we're a fatherhood tribe. A tribe never says, you're done, now move on to the next program. You can come back. I have people 20 years later who reach out and say, hey, we just learned that we're going to have a kid, and I think I need a brush up. Because we have already established that relationship. Or somebody will send me a random picture saying, look, my son got graduated today from college or from high school, and I couldn't have done it without you. And I reply back, I said, you did this. I got nothing to do with it. Right? Immediately validate their work and their experience because they're hungry to do that. Once you engage a dad and they can trust you. In child welfare, it's really hard, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. So, Eric, you ready for me? So, what
Sure.
Eric and I are going to do is we're just going to have a dialogue to kind of have you go through the last 4.5 years of our partnership. I met Eric when his daughter was about 3. She's now 7.5. He didn't have custody. He was barely getting visitation. Mom had custody. Eric, let's just momentarily take a deep breath and go
Okay.
back to 4.5 years to the best of your ability to that day we met and what was going on through your head of participating in mentors, and be as honest as you can. And then how long did it take you to kind of commit to the program and services? So just so people can see the real thing so you can get firsthand experience.
So again, initially as well with mentors, it was also a bit of a rough start, guys. I have battled with substance abuse issues over my life. And I'm now, as of January 27th of this year, 3 years sober. Um, when Deutron and I first met, um, I I don't I know I knew what I wanted, but I didn't have the infrastructure in my life. I felt like to achieve those goals. I think housing was a huge barrier. My criminal history was a huge barrier. Um, you know, perception and bias. I was intimidated. Um, the list went on, and so and I was at that point in time, I was on probation with the County of Santa Cruz, felony probation. So I had to check in with these probation review hearings, and a couple of them didn't go so well. And I was remanded back into custody. While in custody, my daughter was removed from her mother's home. Mind you, my daughter's mother and I have not had any sort of romantic relationship uh, since the very beginning. So it's been years since we had this relationship together. So she would let me see my daughter when she felt like letting me see my daughter. And like I said, my view and my take on the situation at the time was the odds were stacked way against me, and I was at the mercy of my daughter's mother in a lot of respects when it came to visitation and all that. However, back to while I was in custody, I was notified that my daughter was removed from her mother's home. Um, Soon after, there was a visit from some social workers. They came to the jail. I was dressed in my orange uniform, um, and basically out of that first interaction, um, they gathered that I 110% wanted to be a part of my daughter's life, and that I let them know that whatever I need to do, please let me know. And I was able to bail out of jail, and I was able to work my way out of jail into a rehab facility straight from in custody, where I was in touch with the social worker regarding our case. I was then given a case plan to execute that was more or less in line with mother's case plan, um, minus some mental health objectives on her side. But yeah, my visitation started at 1 hour once a week at the parent center, supervised, and it went from there. And I did have some barriers along the way. I did notice some, sort of inequities, but overall, yeah, overall it was very. I had a very positive experience despite negative circumstances, and from dealing with the judges to dealing with the social workers to dealing with the referrals to the programs to executing the case plan. I have a lot of experience in that, and I also have a lot of experience in the the mother's case plan, and the mother's success was more or less transparent for the most part, but I do feel like some stuff was left untransparent. Um, and there were some things there that that had me questioning the way that the system was structured. But all in all, I had a huge fire. I had a huge fire, and I was determined. And that's where I always kind of circle back around to, how driven are these fathers, because the system can be very challenging and it can be very overwhelming. And um, but yeah, Deutron, that's the sort of background where we currently sit.
Yep.
I'm a Cabrillo student trying to finishing up a degree that I started years ago, and working for Rising Scholars here at the college, which is a nonprofit aimed for helping justice impacted community get back into school. Came for full circle. The founder visited the inmates at a facility here in Santa Cruz, and I happened to be there. And so now I'm working here, so it feels real good to do that. And yeah, so the case turned out where I ended up getting full legal and physical custody. The mother had every opportunity. I feel like the social workers and I feel like everybody really bent over backwards to give her every chance to for her to engage. And it just so happened that she was seemingly more focused on taking me out, and she dug herself a big hole, and I ended up getting 100% custody. I absolutely love um, being a full-time dad. It's my passion, it's my purpose. I'm an alumni from Mentors, and then just as Vaden was saying, I do some part-time work for Mentors now, and just love being able to give back, because there's such a community out there of fathers that need support, and Mentors is one place for that. It's just needed in more areas. But my journey was about 2.5 years, all in all, and I, yeah. If there's any questions, please ask. Don't feel free to ask any questions. I'm pretty much an open book when it comes to all my experience and my history here with system involvement, and I'd like to improve. I'd like to locate barriers and improve father engagement. I think it's so very important, as you all know.
Thank you so much, Eric. And you have said so much. I just want to just take a moment to just for you to realize what you have achieved is monumental, right? From 1 hour a week, 24 months to having full custody, right? Like I am an advocate of co-parenting is important, but I remember having conversation with Eric and telling him, you know what? You can't cover for mom anymore. This is not healthy. This is not healthy for the sake of the kid, right? So in these relationship, we're all in. We want the other parent to be involved. Sometimes through the trauma and pain, the mother of our children don't want us. If they're not gonna have the kid, they rather just not have us at all involved and have those kids in the system. Our county is very prides itself in making sure there's kinship placement and family. So I just want to say, and Eric is being very diplomatic. There are places where there was system bias was very obvious, that the overbending was very clear. If that was the case with dad, he would have had restraining order or case plan would have been terminated. We give
No,
moms a chance. We understand, and she deserves that. We want to give every parent every possible chance before we evaluate them out for placement. But at the end of the day, the safety and well-being of the kid is what matters. That's why we all do this work, right? We want Kids deserve a home with love, care, free of neglect and abuse. And some of those parents themselves have had trauma that was never dealt with. It's not their fault, but nobody have dealt with it. But it doesn't mean they have a right or a privilege to pass on that trauma to a next generation, right? That's why getting dads to be involved is one of your way of putting a rail guard in place for that child by giving option to the paternal side of the family to care and support the kid as well as the family. We hope, Eric and I are hopeful mom can, stay clean, sober, take care of her mental health stuff and come back because her daughter needs her. Every daughter needs their mother. I am a believer of that. So one of the things that's really important that I want to frame for you is that every father, despite what their circumstances they come to you have to truly believe they're good fathers. And that sometimes is hard. So if there is any wisdom that I can give you, they're good fathers. However, they could be great. So that's the piece of growth and accountability and responsibility comes in. Sometimes they walk in feeling shamed. They feel they're a bad father because they didn't protect their kid or they lost their temper or whatever. So you got to reassure that they're a good father. However, they could be a great father, and that's what their children deserve. Second part that's really important is about hope. When you're involved in the system has a way, not the people, the system has a way of just extracting and sucking all the hope out of you and make you feel like everything is impossible. Even the case plan of a 6 months feels impossible. But when you're in it, 6 months goes by like that is 12, hopefully not 18 or 24. We don't want people to be in the system that long, right? Our goal is to get them out in 12 months if they're ready and when they're ready. And if not, to advocate. Eric knows I advocate. He's like, man, they want to close my case and I want him out. I'm like, no, 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 you don't want him out. You want to be involved because these protections will come to support you. Because if not, now mom will take him to where? Family court, which is a different kind of battle. That judge doesn't understand as well as dependency judges. So we educate judges. So your judges have to be part of your program and understanding and you learning from them of saying, hey, judge, what are you seeing as a challenge that I can work on with dads? Hey, dads, what are you seeing about our program that you feel like it's not meeting your need? So it has to be a constant communication between programs and all stakeholders, the dad, the mom, if she's willing to participate. I talk to any partner who's willing to talk to me because she'll give me some insight that Eric may not tell me. And my goal is to make Eric be great again. Right? So that's the goal. So Eric, you said a couple of things that I want to just kind of have you flesh it out if that's okay. So one
Sure.
is, do you remember what the turning point was? Was your daughter being placed in foster care the turning point for you to be sober and kind of just say, I'm going to hold on to this bullhorn? Do you remember what the turning point is? And what advice would you give our folks who are talented, who are doing this amazing work, how to identify the turning point for a dad or a mom? Or Vaden, too, you can add, and if you have a thought.
I think from somebody coming from a professional role, it's going to take, feeling. You're going to have to feel out the dad and really just see how far he's willing to go. There was a first part of your question, Deutron. What was it again?
I was saying, what was the turning point for
Turning point.
you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the turning point that made you say, you know what, this time I'm not gonna go back to jail. I'm not gonna hold on to the bottle. I'm really gonna step up. What made that shift for you? Like something clicked. So
Right. No, and the obsession for drinking and any subsequent drug use that has been lifted. I'm
I'm trying to see if there
so
was some wisdom that we can take from that. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. No, so the turning point for me, like I was telling you before, I was in custody, and then I was approached by some social workers who let me know exactly what was going on and that my daughter had been removed and placed with a resource parent. For me, that was the turning point because, like I said, prior to that, while mother had custody, full legal, sole physical custody, I felt just so overwhelmed, so intimidated by um, just by my background, by my history, the courts. It seemed very difficult. Whereas now I was faced with these social workers with a case plan. There was a level playing ground, and so now I had an opportunity. There was a light. There was a chance at being a 100% engaged father, whether it was 50% custody or more. I was going for it. And so once there was a level playing ground, that was my turning point. That was my inspiration. I knew I had a chance. There was an opportunity, and my daughter was in foster care, and that's at the end of the day, that's what really changed the trajectory in my life 100%. Everything was geared towards that. And my social worker became um, someone who I could talk to and who I could connect with. And funny, as we were talking about it now, the case that I was involved in child dependency was dismissed as of July 30th of last year. And I called the social worker that I had on the case. I called her about 3 days ago just to check in and share some successes of my daughter and check in with her. And so I just think that that's so important for fathers to have a positive rapport with the social worker, and for the social workers to be um, you know um, actively attempting to engage with the father as well, because a lot of these dads, we're all aware of trauma informed care and all that, and certain dads are great dads, and just because they're not receptive in the beginning might not, they might need a little bit of an extra kick, an extra incentive to I don't know. I think you understand what I'm trying to say, but
Yeah. No, I got you. Yeah.
but yeah,
And
thank you for letting me speak today. I feel great being
you
able to.
deserve the platform. That's why we're doing this. You deserve this, and you're an inspiration for all of us who are doing this work, because this is it's all about, right? It's all about having families come on the other side stronger, resilient, and preventing, right? And this work is hard. Even though he's successful right now, mom is still trying to take custody from him. So every day he has to deal in trying to keep mom at bay. And I can imagine Mama Bear's heart. She's feeling she needs her daughter too, right? But now, with that thought, I want to just put it out to the group. What did you hear? What stood out to you from Eric's story that might be something you can take back to your work, to your practice, to your profession? What stood out to you? And then what barriers did you hear from what he was sharing? I'm very good at silence. Don't worry. We can just sit here in silence. We have talked a lot. So,
I can share a little bit.
yeah,
Can you hear me fine?
yeah, we can hear you. Thank you, man.
First and foremost, thank you, Eric and Deutron, for this work that you're doing. On myself, I identify with Eric, similar story. And then I ended up having full custody of my kids. And something that resonates with me is having that conversation with the social worker that gave me that little bit of hope. And also, I became a parent mentor, a parent partner here in my county for many years, and now I'm blessed to be able to work for Ventura County in California. So what resonates with me and what I love to share all the time is that I had dealt with many social workers, and when I sat down and I felt not judged, and I felt that I had hope to get those kids, because on paper I was a monster, right? And yeah, I did most of that stuff and whatnot, but it was just like on paper, it's a one sided story for the most part for dads. That's tend to keep silent a lot when it comes down. Sometimes because you don't want to get your partner in trouble, you don't want to get the kids more in trouble, whatnot. But hope is such a big word for me, and just when I work with dads, I that's all I that was my main thing, to try to give them a little bit of hope, because just with a little bit of hope, I know dads could do great things.
Yeah. Thank you. I used to say I am a hope dealer. I don't like the word dealer. So I told my dads, give me another word. So they told me steward. I'm a steward of hope. That's the one thing. If I want them to walk away from mentors, that they know there will be always hope for them no matter what they did. I don't care if they relapse. I don't care if they went back to jail. I don't care what they did. They know that without judgment, they can come back and we start the work together, because the alternative is unacceptable. The alternative is they're absent, and I'm not willing to let them be absent. Even if they're unhealthy, we sit down and have that conversation. What's going on that you're not being healthy? What is getting in the way, right? For them to understand the trauma that is keep recycling or, self-medicating. So there is something that, and through that trust and respect, that's how we keep fathers going. So if there is anything what you heard from both Manny and Eric and Vaden, is hope is an important piece. The system barriers exist there. Be like water. That's what Bruce Lee says. Be like water. Don't let the system stop you. Work around it. Figure out a way, the nooks and crannies around it. Work around that. We're not here to change the system. I promise you, my white hair will tell you I gave up on changing the system. What I'm going to change is change hearts. That I can do. I'm good at changing hearts. Social worker, therapist, probation officer, judges. That I can do. The system is megalithic, supposed to function in the way it is, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. Once in a while, we see hope in the system. When you do capture that, nurture that, support that, and move it. So, with that thought, Vaden, is there anything you want to add from your perspective?
About Eric's share, or do you want me to share my?
Yeah, you can share.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Eric, I first want to thank you for opening up, and I've had the privilege to know you for some time and heard your story a bit, and so thank you for sharing that with everyone. Um, we share some parts of our story, wound up in the same place, taking different roads. And my experience was uh, I had been battling drug and alcohol addiction from a young age. I was 21 years old and had quit drinking and doing drugs. And then by the time I was 22, decided that I should start again. And eventually that led to um, being with the mother of my children, who, we had a couple of kids, and that started to be a wake-up call for me again. And I had always, when I say it was a struggle with drugs and alcohol, I literally do mean a struggle. I was conflicted over it because fortunately I was exposed to 12-step recovery as a child. And so I always knew there was something there. And I studied 12-step recovery and really understood the tenets of it, and then was like, well, that's not for me. So I tried to learn every other skill, and I went to counseling and I went to classes, and I got medicated, and um, all of this is before any incident that happened that I was like, I want to be the best version of me that I can be, because my daughter was born, and I want to, let's do even better, right? As Deutron said, I was good, but I wanted to be better. And unfortunately, I had a lot of bad habits and a lot of unresolved personal trauma and a lot of generational shortcomings in parenting skills. And when high stress situations came up, I behaved in a way that was unsafe. And it resulted in me being arrested multiple times. And through that process, I learned to separate myself from the mother of my children. That I knew that I lacked impulse control around that person specifically. And so I was, all right, we're separate, and let's raise these kids. This is my priority. I want to be a father. I want to be the father that I wish I had. And I did a lot of self-referral, and family court started, and then it progressed. This was a time, it was about 2017, when family court was making referrals to dependency court. I didn't have an open CPS case. I didn't have a specific incident, and yet still ended up in dependency court, uh, sort of by the nature of what we've seen in the chat a bit, some unfairness around how the genders are perceived in the court system, how fathers are perceived in the court system. And so luckily, I had been on this path of trying to learn as many skills as I can, no matter how misguided I implemented them. And uh, the dependency court case was dropped pretty quickly. And the lawyer that was assigned to our daughters saw the connection that our girls had with me and with their mother, and that we maybe weren't doing it well, but that we were doing it safely as could be, and that us being separated was the right choice. I then got connected with a group called Moab, which was a sort of a self-help, not 12-step recovery group for aggressive men. It was a bunch of guys who thought that AA and NA was not the solution to the other problems that they had going on. They're like, yeah, AA, NA, it helps with my drugs and my alcohol, but what do I do about whatever this is? And and so they turned to Eckhart Tolle, they turned to Don Miguel Ruiz and the Four Agreements, they turned to a bunch of different resources, and one of the men in that group said, "Hey, have you heard of Papa's supporting father involvement?" And I was like, "No, but let's go." And so I sought that out, self-referred, and that was how I met Deutron and went through the supporting father involvement curriculum. I got so much out of it and enjoyed it, which was wild for me to enjoy anything, to continue after the base curriculum and did the advanced course, which included uh, nonviolent communication, where we invited the partners. It would either be co-parent mothers or the mother, or for me, it was my girlfriend at the time, to come and engage with this curriculum and practice it real life, uh, in a real life way, and to teach both party, or at least two parties of a family unit, these skills, so that it's not just one person practicing them. And that was incredibly helpful for me. And I want to pause and mention something that someone said to me about where I was at that point. I had learned so many skills, taken so many classes. I was trying to be sober. I was doing all of this building of myself, but I was forging a weapon. It was to attack mom. It was to, don't you know, she's so wrong, and look at what I've done and I'm so good. And the phrase that stuck with me is, the same steel that forges a sword forges the shield. And that all the skills I learned could really be more appropriately used as a shield to protect myself and our daughters, that I don't need to refute everything that's said about me. I don't need to fight against the system. I heard Deutron say earlier, one of Bruce Lee's famous quotes, "Be like water," is to go with the flow, right? I don't have to agree with the system to work within it. And that's one of the things that has really driven me into this work is because I so much do not agree with the way that the system functions, that I needed to become a part of it. And I continued to educate myself through classes. I followed up with Deutron years later, and found out about mentors and was like, how do I get involved? How do I help? Uh, and that was when I was invited to be part of the Fatherhood Advisory Council. Um, it was a collection of fathers who were carefully picked to be leaders in this work that we're talking about, and to have, instead of just bringing awareness, a lot of these symposiums and groups that we do, it's like, oh, we need to talk about, being racist aware and being bias aware and all these awarenesses that are raised. And that is helpful. That is literally the first step. And let's talk about what's the solution. What are we going to do about it? What's the thing that we are going to do different? And we came up with stuff. We have solutions. We have answers. The Moab framework that I experienced, I thought this is a great jumping off point. What if there was a curriculum that was backed by all of these skills that I've learned, all these classes that I've taken over these years? What if I took that and put it into Moab and made sure that I got the green light from people who know better on how to structure these things? And so now, full circle, I run a 16-week program of Moab. I work for the Parent Center, directly involved with fathers and parents in dependency court. I previously was working in recovery. That was not the fit for me. I much find it far more valuable of my time to engage in the way that I am now with fathers. Um, and the day to day, I carry a lot of 12-step principles with me, and I practice these principles in all my affairs, including this work. And one of the things I mentioned earlier, that the living proof is, I ran into a guy who I went to school with in middle school, and we'd run into each other a few times over the last few years, and I just struck up a conversation and we exchanged numbers, and he's a single dad and he's going through these hard times, and he has not hit, the train hasn't left the station yet. He's not in crisis. And just through having a natural conversation about how are you actually doing? How is real life going for you? And bridging that connection and being honest about how my life is going, we were able to make that connection. We have a lunch planned. We're going to hang out. We're going to talk and just talk and have it be natural. And like, hey, by the way, if you want to come and hang out at this group, come hang out at this group. And if you want to meet with these people, let's meet with these people. There is a network of fathers. And we, as mentors, driving change for boys, men, and dads, want to provide that framework that we can pass on to all these other places that have, I see Cindy, never heard of Moab, right? That I see so many comments in here. Where do we find these services? How do we have these services? Where do we get them? You do them, you build them, and we have a framework, and this is what we're willing to offer everyone. It's free. We're giving it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Vaden. Thank you, Eric. So as you could see, when lived experience is given the opportunity, they know firsthand what worked for them, what didn't work for them. The great thing about what we do on Mentor is we weave the lived experience with an evidence-based curriculum. We marry those two and do the best. When we know the evidence curriculum has its limitation, we lean on our lived experience, say, hey, how is this landing? What is missing? I'm grateful. Now Vaden runs 16-week Moab group for me. I don't have the time to do it. He loves it. The only thing I had to do is figure out how to find the money. To be honest with you, we didn't have the money. I just fundraised. And I told him I can do it for a year and we'll see. Now he's working on identifying funding. So the biggest piece, if there's anything you can take away from this presentation, is make sure there's something in your community for fathers. If that means that they can bring their kids and have pancake on Sundays, the fourth Sunday of the month. We do that with a bunch of doulas. So yesterday I got a text saying, hey, when are you going to train a man doula? I said, what do you mean? I'm open. I'm willing. I'm always willing to explore. She said, you know, when you do home birthing program, a lot of the time the attention is on mom. Dads kind of are left out. Maybe these men doulas could help the man to be in place to be supported so then they can support their wives or partners, right? There's a lot of amazing ideas out there, but we always get stuck because how much it costs. If I told you it took me less than $5,000 to start a Sunday program, which served more people than a program that was funded by OCAP that served 120 people. So dads are hungry to connect with each other, to support each other. They just need the space. So if you could get a space, a church, a family resource center to host, you can get the pancakes donated from the food bank. You know, they can give you the flour, the eggs, and everything. It becomes a cooking class. And then it becomes our pancake breakfast now are turned into a brunch. The dads don't want to leave for 3 hours. I'm like, okay, you guys got to run the other 2 hours. I got to go home and make pancake for my kid too, right? So they want to connect. They see the value of not being in isolation. The fathers we have today, they're different. They're hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for connection. They're hungry to be the best version of themselves, but sometimes they don't know how to get there. So we may have to lay, the yellow brick road for them to arrive to those places. So if you need that support, reach out to me. We have Moab. We can share with you the template. Mr. Rogers, Andy DeLeon, he has done some amazing program. He has come and spoke to my county. There's a lot of resource, and each one of you know also. But the technicality piece is sometimes it's hard. So reach out to us. We'll give it to you for free. I just had Solano County reach out to me and saying, hey, we're doing this program. Could you help us? I'm like, sure. So don't let funding be an obstacle. But the truth is, you also have to find the investment for long term. We can't do it in pennies and nickels and dime. If this is a value, then we got to invest in it. I'm proud to say our county and our director, she speaks and does the walk. She has invested, and Vaden is an example of that. For me to see one of my dads now in a position of peer mentor, it gives me a joy. To see Eric supporting Justice Involved parents and people who are going to succeed in college. You know that recidivism could be reduced through higher education, and that's what Eric is doing. He's helping other people not to come back in the system, right? And then prevention, of course, is what we care about. Like I said, it's the new theme, right? It's all about prevention. I'm hoping it's not seasonal. We get to do this longer. And I'm hopeful. I sit on the advisory committee for Families First, and the shift we're seeing from reporting to supporting families, it gives me hope. After 35 years of doing this work, I see the light at the end of the tunnel that we're making a shift. And I know it's going to take probably a generation to totally shift it, but we're finally getting it. And when we are supporting families, please make sure there's a lane for fathers and father figures. So we're going to go ahead and stop here. We have about 10 minutes left. If you have any question or any wisdom that you want to depart, please, we want to create that platform. And we're very grateful you decided to join us this afternoon. Question, comments?
Deutron, I would just like to commend, this is Roger. I would just like to commend, Vaden, Eric. That was amazing to hear another brother that's, doing the work. I've been impacted. I'm not going to go into that because it's not about me today. It's about you all. I would just say to everyone who's here on this call, in whatever capacity you serve, remember this. We've paid a price, and we're here standing because we want to see change, but we also want to see prevention. And prevention is, how do we look at what we could have had? Hearing these stories, let them not just be another story that we just listen to. Let it be something that impacts you to go back and say, you know what, something inside of me is saying I need I need to speak up a little bit because it takes, as you know, Deutron shared, a village to be able to start speaking on the inclusiveness of fathers, not just when they come through the doors, but before they get there, right? And giving that opportunity, of being inclusive and opening those doors and having those conversations and coming outside of the walls that we're used to being behind and thinking, why aren't they coming in? Well, it's just like what's been said over and over. We need to meet dads where they're at. And it's not just to go and throw, hey, you need a parenting class, but hey, I see you. You're a wonderful father. Look at what, man, I tell you, if you want to make a dad's day, compliment him, right? Words of affirmation. It's
Yep.
like to a mom when you just tell her, hey, I love you. That I do it to my wife all the time. To a dad, it's I'm proud of you. Wow, you're amazing. And those kind little words can really just begin to start these conversations. And you never know what you're going to get out of it. You may get an Eric, you may get a Vaden, you may get someone else who's there to help to establish the prevention piece that we're all looking for. So I'll stop there. Thank you, Deutron, for this.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Thank you. And your story, and I have said in your presentation and heard, so I get goosebumps. So, this is the network we're building, and we can't do this without you. Each one of you you know how it feels to have a father or not have a father, right? It's not like it's an alien thing. We all had a father or no father. We know firsthand. So tap into that energy and let it flow and connect. Right? In parenting, I say connect before you correct. Right? If you can do that connection, the correction will work by itself. I promise you. And I'm a testament of that. Those guys will jump the highest obstacle you give them. But if you don't connect, it's just going to become a transaction. So how do you connect? Ask them. Tell me who you are. I'm not even going to open the file yet. I want to hear from you. Who are you? What matters to you? Tell me about your family. What do you want your kids to say 10 years from now about you? That's a question I use. And the moment you see every dad almost hearing, because they know what they want to say, but they're kind of held back with what's happening right now on paper. And they know that's not them. That was an episode. But in the system, that episode becomes chronic. It paints everything, and everybody see them through that lens. Hint why we say every father is a good father, can be a great father. We believe in their goodness. So that's an invitation for you. Any other question or thoughts? One basic thing you could do is the father-friendly self-assessment. It's a very small survey you could do. We're happy to share that to this group after the training, and commit one area after you do that survey. Commit to one area of improvement. I'm willing to offer myself to support you, because for me, this work is a passion of mine, and I want to help anywhere. I don't care if you're in Solano or San Diego or LA. People can participate in my group from anywhere. So if you don't have a program, send them to me. They'll be happy to participate. If that means as long as they have a Zoom, thanks to COVID, what we have done is there is no county boundaries anymore. You can participate anywhere. You just need an internet connection. And if they can't afford that, I bet you I can figure out how to get them an internet in their county. So there's no excuse not to make a referral to me or to Mr. DeLeon or any other group that are out there. So at least if you don't have it, until you build it, refer them out to a place where they can connect. And tell them, saying, hey, I'm not referring you because you need something. Tell them I'm referring you because you have something to offer those men. That's that pride thing. Trust me, every man is going to sign up for that because they're going to say, you mean I got something to offer? Yeah. Go ahead. I see a couple hands. Go ahead. Come on, off mute. Yep, there you are.
Hello.
Hello.
My question is at the beginning, and I apologize if I missed it, but at the beginning you had indicated that you went to a prison and you did parenting classes in the prison. Do you go to all prisons or is it a select prison that you
So
do them?
currently, good question. So I do the work in our local prison in Santa Cruz County. So if there are a prison near you, I can share with you. Maybe there's somebody already providing that groups, like Friends Outside. Somebody is already doing it. You may not know. So it's about connecting you through the network. And both myself and others are currently sit on the California Fatherhood Council. And one of the things we're trying to do is map out which counties have services that are supporting fathers so we can make that information available because those guys in jail, they're a captured audience. My guys, they rather be with me and not just be with me, but I get them what's called a milestone. Every program they finish with me, they get a week off of their sentence. So they show up again and again and again. So and that's one of my favorite thing to do because when they're there, they can honestly be themselves. They can really they're clear, they're sober, there's not the regular pressure of when you're in the community of housing, transportation, work, you're not dealing with that. So you can really focus in what you want for your kids. And, one of the dads this morning telling me, said, that thing we talked about parenting style? I was telling my mom and dad without like kind of saying, hey, you're doing this wrong. I was saying, I learned this information and what do you think about it? Do you know what your parenting style? So when you see the dads taking the information and teaching somebody, that's when you know you have succeeded, right? They're now, they feel comfortable enough gently to encourage somebody to try something different because they said, I love my parents, but I know there are certain things they're not doing right. But I'm not going to come out and tell them you're doing this wrong. So I'm going to, in about roundabout way, get them to that point because without them, my kids will be in foster care. So does that answer
Thank
your
you.
question?
Absolutely. The
Yeah.
fathers that we have been supporting our in our program are in Men's Central and Wayside. So how can I get in communication with you so that
So I'll put my information in that. And Eric and Vaden, I encourage you guys to put your information too. So email works better for me, but I'll also give you my phone number. Reach out. Except there you go, mentors. And also, Mr. DeLeon, I want to invite you to put your information too. He is another amazing resource for you and a great trainer as well. So and then, yeah, there's my information in there. Please reach out, send me an email. I do run an organization, so sometimes may take me a little bit longer, but keep nudging, okay? Doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I'm trying to put out a fire at the moment, but I will get back to you. And yeah, I would love to support you or learn from you. I also love to learn about what you're doing, what's working. If there's something I can steal, borrow, adapt because this work, there's a lot of experts out there. I never claim to be an expert in this field. I'm always a student. So if there's something you're doing, let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Any other question or comment or resources